Hello again. Some time ago I did a couple of videos on the links between Elvis and Bob Dylan and Elvis and Bruce Springsteen. I had actually planned to do a third video but never got round to making it. So here it is, the links between Elvis and David Bowie. Now with Dylan and Springsteen, the links have always been quite obvious. They've always talked about Elvis. Bowie's a little bit different. Not so apparent. David Robert Bowie was born in London on the 8th of January 1947. He would later say that he felt this was significant. It's interesting to note that Dame Shirley Bassey was also born on the 8th of January 1937 in Cardiff. But before we get carried away, Kim Jong-un, the Supreme Leader of North Korea, was born on the 8th of January 1984, and I'm not aware that he's had a #1 hit album yet. When David was a child, his father Haywood Bowie brought home a small collection of American singles, and David was struck by Little Richard's Tutti Frutti and Elvis's Hound Dog. He took up the ukulele and would perform Elvis songs complete with gyrations. He attended Bromley Technical School studying art, music and design, and there he was exposed to modern jazz. He had released a handful of singles under various names, but these had not been successful. He adopted the name David Bowie by 1966. 3 years later, he released Space Oddity, and we have Liftoff. In 1970, he signed a new manager, Tony DeFries of Main Man, an entertainment management company. DeFries opened talks with RCA to sign David to a contract. In September 1971, Bowie became an RCA recording artist and had begun work on his new alter ego, Ziggy Stardust. At the beginning of June 1972, RCA contacted DeFries with the news that Elvis's manager, Tom Parker, wanted to meet him. It was agreed that DeFries, Bowie and his guitar player Mick Ronson and their partners would fly to New York. Now, Bowie was actually in the middle of a tour and cancelled 2 shows to go. He would later tell a slightly confused version of what happened, but DeFries has set the record straight. RCA reserved a suite for Bowie and his wife, and on arrival they found in the suite a copy of every Elvis album that had been released, and Angie would later say that they couldn't have given David a better gift. That evening, the 9th of June, they all headed to Madison Square Garden to witness Elvis in concert. DeFries asked David to go in his full Ziggy costume, as representatives from RCA would be present, and they hadn't actually met David yet. Bowie would later claim that he'd just come off stage and rushed to the arena. Tony DeFries and Bowie were blown away by what they saw that night. DeFries called it one of the greatest concerts he ever witnessed. He also said it had a big effect on Bowie and directly affected his next steps in his career. DeFries went to the hotel where Elvis was staying and spent time with Elvis chatting. He said that he was impressed with Elvis's knowledge of music. It was not clear that Elvis knew who he was or why he was there. Tom Parker then appeared and a short meeting followed. Parker insisted that the meeting be kept confidential, and it's only recently that DeFries has spoken about it. Parker wanted to know how DeFries had negotiated such a good contract with RCA. But I believe there may be another element to this. DeFries had negotiated that he got a full 50% of Bowie's RCA royalties. Was the seed planted to take 50% of Elvis's earnings? I find this revealing. For me, Parker was a chancer. His image of being a master negotiator wasn't real, and he didn't want people to realise this. On returning to the UK, Bowie asked for a new jumpsuit with high collar, and he even took to wearing a scarf on stage. His next album was a project called Aladdin Sane. DeFries stated that Bowie was impressed with Elvis's approach that incorporated a modern R&B sound, and he began to move in that direction with his own sound. When the time came to produce a photograph for the cover of the album, the photographer Brian Duffy was hired. His son later spoke about the session. He stated that Bowie wanted to incorporate a lightning flash on the cover. Duffy said that Bowie got the idea from Elvis's TCB logo. In 1975, through RCA, Elvis's management team was handed a demo of a new Bowie composition called Golden Years. It was seriously considered for Elvis, but for whatever reason was finally rejected. The story was later distorted to be that Bowie wrote the song for Elvis, but this isn't true. But it is said that Elvis was interested in Bowie writing something for him, and even in him producing. Bowie stated, "He did send me a note once that said all the best and have a great tour. I still have that." The reporter states that he did the note in an Elvis voice. We can get an idea of what this sounds like from a Christmas message that Bowie recorded one year whilst he was in America.
Hello everybody, this is David Bowie making a telephone call from the US of A. Well, this time of the year, I can't help but remember my Britishness and all the jolly British folk. So here's to you, and have yourselves a merry little Christmas and a happy new year. Thank you very much.
The two artists were now linked in some nebulous way. In 1997, the country star Dwight Yoakam spent time with Bowie and later gave an interview in which he repeated a story that Bowie had told him. They shared their love of Elvis, and Bowie said that 6 months before Elvis's death, the King had phoned him up and asked him to produce his next album. He said that was based on Elvis having heard Bowie's Golden Years, and I thought, oh my God, it's a tragedy that he was never able to make that. I couldn't even imagine 1977 David Bowie producing Elvis. It would have been fantastic. It has to be one of the greatest tragedies in pop music that it didn't happen. One of the biggest missed opportunities. The article ended, in fact Bowie was a massive Elvis fan and was said to have an encyclopedic knowledge of the rock and roll icon's career. Bowie later recalled, apparently Elvis heard the demos because we were both on RCA, and Colonel Tom thought I should write some songs. There was talk between our offices that I should be introduced to Elvis and maybe start working with him in a production writer capacity, but it never came to pass. I would have loved working with him. God, I would have adored it. David would describe Elvis as a major hero of mine. David did later meet Lisa Marie and Priscilla on at least 2 occasions. On the 16th of August 2002, David was performing in Seattle. He told the crowd he couldn't let the evening pass without singing Elvis. He then performed I Feel So Bad and One Night. In 2014, David was diagnosed with liver cancer. He decided to keep this private. Knowing that he didn't have long, he began work on his final album. It is an astonishing artistic vision of a man nearing his own death. Surely it cannot be a coincidence that he built this vision around the title Black Star. Recorded in 1960, Black Star was to be the theme song for the movie that would eventually be released as Flaming Star. The original song was finally released in 1986. Elvis sings, "Every man has a black star over his shoulder, and when a man sees his black star, he knows his time has come." The song presents a black star as an omen of death to anyone who sees it. David had been living with the black star for months. He released his album on the 8th of January 2016, his 69th birthday. He died 48 hours later. It is remarkable when you consider the wide range of artists who were deeply affected by Elvis, who were inspired by him, who basically deep down wanted to be him. There are of course many other artists inspired by Elvis. Elton John, Freddie Mercury, Robert Plant. The list would go on for quite some time. As far as records go, Elvis and David Bowie do in fact appear on 2 RCA discs. This is a promo from Spain. So we have Elvis Steamroller Blues, and on the B-side, David Bowie, Let's Spend the Night Together. And the other one, of course, is the 1979 50th anniversary of RCA in the UK promotional box. It contains 2 discs with recordings by the most famous of RCA's recording artists over the years. So it begins with Enrico Caruso and ends with Bonnie Tyler. And it does of course include Elvis singing Jailhouse Rock and David Bowie singing Space Oddity. So the box opens up. Inside there is an information leaflet which briefly tells the story of RCA in the UK. And the 2 discs, disc 1 is on the Red Seal label, and disc 2 is on the orange label. As far as I know, those are the only 2 discs that contain both Elvis and David Bowie, unless of course you know different. So hopefully you enjoyed that quick look at David Bowie and Elvis. Till next time, bye for now.